Hey guys, my name is Brendan Diaz, and today I'm going to be going over the symbols and themes in Jane Eyre. Let's go. So the author of the novel Jane Eyre is Charlotte Bronte, and it was originally published in October 16, 1847. So Charlotte Bronte was an English novelist and poet, and many of her novels were studied and were considered classics. She even published the famous novel Valet, which follows the story of a girl named Lucy Snow and her adventures. And if you direct your attention to the left here, you can see this is an art painting of Charlotte Bronte. So before we even get into the different themes and symbols, I think it's important to ask ourselves, why should we look at the symbols and themes in novels? Well, it helps create a more vivid image in the reader's mind. It gives reasoning as to why certain things are done the way they are, and it helps give the reader context because given certain themes and symbols, we can figure out why this novel was written or why a certain part of the novel was written the way it was. Setting of Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre happened during the early 19th century and mostly took place in the northern part of England. Jane Eyre took place during the English Victorian era, and this era was infamous for its class-based society, and it basically determined a person's livelihood and overall lifestyle that they were going to live. So it was a very important part of that time period. This time period was also known for the first ever industrial revolution and had many different social and political reforms. So the main characters of Jane Eyre. Of course, the main character is Jane Eyre. She is the person that the novel follows and basically who the novel is centered around. She was a very progressive person and was always looking for ways to improve herself. Another character is Edward Rochester. He is the head of Thornfield Estate and he is a very rich but mysterious man. He is also Jane's lover towards the middle of the novel, and he is a very reckless character and always seems to have problems. Another character is Mrs. Reed. Mrs. Reed is Jane Eyre's aunt, and she was very abusive towards Jane, but for a very weird reason. And it's because Mrs. Reed saw that Mr. Reed, her uncle, or Jane's uncle, liked Jane more than her actual children, and this caused her to become very abusive towards Jane. Whether it be the Red Room or her just verbally abusing Jane, she was a big reason as to why Jane had a lot of trauma growing up. So the themes in Jane Eyre. One theme that I found in Jane Eyre was the theme of religion, and it was extremely prevalent in Jane Eyre, and understandably so because during this time people were looking for ways to progress and reform. Throughout the novel, Jane moves in and out of the traditional Catholic teachings, but throughout still holds the core values of Catholicism. At the beginning of the book, Jane is a devout Catholic and follows most of the teachings, but this is mainly due to the fact that she lived in places that pushed those beliefs very hard. A big reason as to why this was because of a person named Mr. Brockhurst. She was a very big influence in Jane's life, and he is the one that constantly berates Jane and about Catholic teachings. And when Jane tries to question certain things about the Bible, she's met with aggressive behavior, and this basically restricted her movement in what she wanted to believe. However, as the novel progresses, Jane slowly begins to form her own opinions on the world around her, and yeah, as mentioned earlier, she still believed in the core values of Catholicism, but she learned the, I guess, freedom in a way. So another theme that I found in Jane Eyre is social class, and as mentioned earlier, the Victorian era put a lot of emphasis on social class, and it determined a person's lifestyle and the jobs they were going to have. Jane Eyre worked to subvert the social norm by allowing Jane to move through the social class with relative ease, because social mobility was basically non-existent at that time, and it was very hard to move in between and out of the classes. This can be seen when Jane became homeless after leaving Thornfield Estate and was later found by her cousins, because as you know, when her uncle died, Mr. Reed, um, his his inheritance was left to Jane, and she became very rich. So, symbolism in Jane Eyre, of course, is the Red Room. It's an extremely important symbol in Jane Eyre, and it represented the horror and trauma that Jane Eyre experienced. The Red Room was a room that Jane's aunt used to punish her, and Jane constantly recalls the Red Room when she is under distress, and even when Jane is released from the room, she still feels trapped in extreme sadness. In the end, she was able to overcome this feeling because when she marries when she marries Edward and Edward Rochester and has kids, she basically puts all that behind her and decides to move forward. Thank you, and these are my citations, and have a great day.